Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm so excited. It's my very first one with Teikametrics. My name is Liz Fickenshire. I'm the e-commerce marketing manager here, and I've got my friend Becky Trowbridge from Ecom Engine. Becky, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
There has been a shakeup again in the industry regarding Amazon's rules around asking for product reviews. And since Becky is an expert on product reviews and Ecom Engine helps sellers get more product reviews, I thought that we would have her on today to talk about what the changes are and talk a little bit about strategy to get more product reviews. So we've got some visuals for you. I'm going to share my screen. The session is being recorded. If you've got questions, just please type them into the Q&A section. But without further ado, I think we're going to get started. So just a little bit about Teikametrics. We are a SaaS platform powering Amazon and Walmart advertising across thousands of brands. And larger brands that need a little bit more hands-on support, we have a team of expert analysts that can actually act as an extension of that brand's organization. What we're focused on at Teikametrics is helping ensure every advertising dollar that you spend on Amazon and Walmart goes to what matters most, which is growing your overall business. So that's about us. Becky, why don't you tell everybody about Ecom Engine?
Sure. So Ecom Engine was founded in 2007. We're headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, but we're kind of all over the US. We're actually a remote company, which has been excellent. With COVID, we were already used to being remote. We have 4 software tools for Amazon sellers to help them grow their businesses. So Feedback 5, as Liz mentioned, that's our review requesting tool. It also has a lot of really cool other functionality like alerting, feedback requests, some analytics. There's definitely a lot to check out there. Market Scout is an ASIN lookup tool. Restock Pro is an FBA inventory management tool that has some really awesome kitting features. So if you're looking to start kitting or creating bundles for your FBA inventory, definitely check that out. And then we have Smart Price, which is in public beta right now, and that is an algorithmic repricer for Amazon sellers. Our tools are used all over the world. Feedback 5 in particular is in 15 different marketplaces, which you can see in the image there. So we're really excited. We just added 5 new marketplaces, and we're happy to bring that functionality to sellers everywhere.
You added those new marketplaces super quick. I noticed that. And you've published some really awesome content on succeeding on those different marketplaces. So you guys should check out the Ecom Engine blog because there's some great content there about selling in the Netherlands and selling in Brazil and some of the newer marketplaces. So that's super helpful because everybody wants to expand. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about those updates with buyer seller messaging because that's a hot topic and it's important to know the rules so that you don't break the rules because that can result in all kinds of badness like suspension and restriction from buyer seller messaging and all that jazz. So we don't want that. Becky's going to talk a little bit about the request a review button, which is a different way to request reviews on your orders. And we're going to go over the importance of product reviews, not like we have to tell you because you know as e-commerce people and professionals that it's really crucial to get those reviews. So we're also going to talk a little bit about how to get more product reviews on the up and up. We're not going to like encourage you to break any rules. That's the whole point, is like keep you compliant, but also help you be successful. So let's get started because we only have a half an hour. Becky, sure. Do tell us what has changed with buyer seller messaging.
Well, Amazon recently announced communication guideline updates that impact buyer seller messaging. These will go into effect on November 3rd, 2020. So if you're watching this later, they will be in effect. If you're watching this in the next few weeks, they're still housed as a PDF on the Seller Central News platform. So I wrote a blog post that links to it, and I'll be sure to share that in the email. Liz will make sure that you get that. So one of the big things that changed or was updated was that Amazon gave us some definitions around buyer seller messaging. Sellers, software providers, pretty much everyone in the space has been asking for clarification for a long time, as Liz knows, about a lot of rules associated with how you communicate with buyers. So one thing we got is we now have permitted messages and proactive permitted messages. So permitted messages are those communications that you get that you need to complete an order or, you know, customer service inquiry that you need to respond to, you're going to respond to those on Seller Central. They're order specific. Proactive permitted was kind of cool because for the first time, Amazon specifically stated that you can use a third-party tool that is in the Amazon App Store to request reviews and feedback. Before, it was always implied by the policy that that was okay, and we always thought that that was okay because we were working closely with Amazon and others in the space. And we've really always striven to be, providing the education that sellers need to keep their accounts safe and to do everything, like Liz said, on the up and up. But it was really nice to get that confirmation. So you can send these messages to request a product review or seller feedback, to resolve an order fulfillment issue. If you need information to complete an order, especially if you're doing something custom, if you have to schedule delivery for a heavy or bulky item, things like that. So these can be sent by email. You can use Amazon's templates within Seller Central, or the request a review template, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You can use a third-party tool that is authorized in the Amazon App Store, as I mentioned, or you can use the Amazon API, which is a little trickier and probably not something that you want to get into right before Q4.
Yeah, it's best to work with somebody who already does that, that's trusted in the App Store and vetted by Amazon. I think this is, when you explain this to somebody who's like outside of the industry, I think it would seem like this is not that big of a deal. But this is a huge deal because it's never been explicitly stated that you could use buyer seller messaging to request reviews, except for that there were plenty of places in Seller Central that told you how you can and cannot request reviews via buyer seller messaging. So this clarification was very needed.
Yes.
And it's a big deal and a great news in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think it's a great sign of just Amazon working more closely with third-party sellers. I think that's a focus for Amazon, and I think that this is a good step in that process.
Absolutely, I agree with that. It's very important that the reviews on Amazon stay honest, right? Because it's so important when you're shopping, when you're looking for something, you can't pick it up and feel what it feels like and see what color it actually is and smell it. You have to rely on the reviews in order to make a decision, a purchase decision. And Amazon has worked really hard to make sure people could not game the system because those reviews are so important. And that's why the review landscape has changed so much. There's so much that you used to be able to do that you couldn't do. I remember in 2016, what I used to call review gate. You used to be able to incentivize reviews by sending free or deeply discounted products to people, and they would leave a review and say, I received this product in return for my honest feedback or whatever. And then Amazon was like, well, that's 90% of the reviews that are coming in. So we can't do that anymore because people obviously are going to leave a more positive review if they got it for free. So it's been a real struggle to find the balance with keeping reviews honest, but also giving sellers the opportunity to get those reviews because they factor in so heavily with an ASIN's success on the marketplace. So blah, 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 Liz. Becky.
Oh, it was great.
Even though you can use buyer seller messaging to request reviews, there are things that you can and can't do. So why don't we go over some of those?
Sure. Well, I always feel like Amazon likes to talk a lot about what you can't do. So as you see, we have quite a list here of non-permitted message types. I think that it's important to think big picture about the buyer's experience. What would you want to get in your inbox? I know as a frequent Amazon shopper myself, I don't want emails that say thank you and nothing else. So they're really trying to eliminate those unnecessary messages. So, as we've mentioned, product reviews are really important for your seller account. Requesting reviews, it's how are you going to get them if you don't ask for them? I think Liz and I have talked about this a lot over the years. A lot of shoppers, just people in our space that are not in e-commerce don't really understand the impact that reviews make, even though they use them as shoppers themselves. So I think sometimes just that nudge of sending an email and saying, hey, did you like our product? I think that that's really helpful. Liz, looks like we're on an island.
I know. It's so exciting. Hold on.
Yeah, so Amazon has said, they don't want these very simple messages that just say thank you. There's a lot with, let me see if I can find my slide, sorry. Oh, yes, marketing and promotional messaging, including coupons. That's not a new one. We've been hearing about that one for years. It's been very clear in the buyer-seller messaging guidelines, but I think it's one that is not necessarily intuitive for sellers, especially if you have any experience with having a brick and mortar or selling on other marketplaces. You know, a lot of gurus in the marketing space will say offer coupons or, you know, include a promotional message in your follow-up message to buyers. But you have to remember that these are Amazon's customers and you're on their playground, you have to play by their rules. So that's something that, you know, isn't necessarily as clear to people when they're getting started on the marketplace, that I think is really important to highlight. Another one is that you shouldn't be encouraging positive product reviews or seller feedback ratings. There was a lot of problems with review manipulation on the marketplace. There are still a lot of problems with that. And so Amazon really wants to make sure that your request is as neutral as possible, that you're being objective, you're not, you know, trying to manipulate the buyer to leave you a better review or trying to divert a negative review by saying something like, oh, if you had a terrible experience, contact us. And if not, hey, go leave us a review on Amazon. So again, that's not new. Requests for removal or update of an existing product review is also not new. That is one I like to talk about because I think a lot of people don't know what to do when they get a negative review. And the main thing that I would recommend is that you can actually go to that negative review on your ASIN and respond in line. Unfortunately, the buyer does not receive any kind of notification, which, you know, it doesn't really open up a dialogue unless the buyer actually comes back and looks at their negative review to see if you commented. However, I think it's incredibly important for future shoppers. I know when I'm vetting products, you know, I got a dog recently, he's a heavy chewer, and there's definitely a lot of research that I need to do before buying him things from Amazon, which is one of the primary places that I find fun toys for him. And I do look at those responses from the brand or the seller that say, you know, I'm sorry that you had a bad experience, this is what happened, or, you know, basically trying to make it right, or explaining, you know, like, hey, you have a 75-pound lab and this dog is made for a Chihuahua, so you should have read my listing better. But I think that gives you as a seller an opportunity to say, oh, I'm getting all these negative reviews because I'm getting, you know, people that are mad that this toy got destroyed in 5 minutes, but, you know, I didn't make it clear that it was intended for small dogs. So that gives you a chance to go back and improve your listing. And I could talk about this all day, but there are tons of ways that reviews can benefit you, and that is one of them. And then they did say, you know, don't send a repeat request for a product review or seller feedback. And again, just get back to, what do you want in your inbox? Do you want a seller sending you 5 emails asking for a review or feedback? Probably not. So try to keep your messages neutral and as few as possible.
That's awesome. Thank you. So now this is the kind of a bummer to me because I come from the let's put emojis in subject lines and have some fun. There are some restrictions about actual things you can use. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so as Liz mentioned, I think it's a few slides from now, but yeah, emojis and GIFs are no longer allowed in your messages, which is a bummer because, especially for subject lines, it is a way to stick out. However, if you think about Amazon's branding, which we'll get into a little bit with some of these changes, I think that, you know, Amazon's not using emojis in their branding, and it seems like with this most recent set of updates, there's a lot that we'll get into about styling your emails. And it seems like they really want to create that experience that feels cohesive for buyers. And I think there might be some things also associated with web accessibility, which is another part of the updates. So sometimes those emojis just don't show up well on screen readers. But yeah, so we got permitted message guidelines. So you can include attachments, which was kind of a question. It wasn't as specifically stated as I would have liked personally. Um, they did specify that they need to be product instructions, warranty information, or invoices. So gone are the days of, hey, you know, you bought this pan from me on Amazon and here's my list of 50 best recipes for my grandmother. So those kind of freebies, you know, if you still want to offer something like that, you could do that physically in your product, or you could include probably a link on your product insert. If you do a product insert that just links to a URL, that might be getting a little,
Yeah,
I don't know.
there was this
It's
whole
hard because you don't want to include a 50-page document, but you do want to provide the value. So
right, but the little
yeah,
like free gift with purchase kind of thing that
yeah,
people were doing with PDFs, it's not going to be okay anymore. But I think that it's super important that there is clarification that you can include an attachment, because I know I've talked to a lot of brands that said, gee, you know, I should have done my product instructions differently, and now all my
right,
products at FBA, and it would be so expensive for me to recall everything and update the product information. To be able to send that as a PDF
right.
attachment is huge, and a big cost saver for a lot of brands that have made changes to their product information. So it ain't all bad, right?
Now, and if you do include a link, they're really discouraging you from including links. But if you do include a link, it needs to be a secure, working external link that is necessary to complete the order. So again, we're getting into stuff like you're creating something that is custom for this person, and they're communicating with you about what they wanted to say, things like that, or a link to Amazon. So one of the main things that comes up again and again in all of the buyer seller messaging guidelines is you're not diverting traffic from Amazon. You know, these are Amazon's customers, as we mentioned. They want to make sure that there's a positive customer experience. They definitely don't want you taking someone who bought something from you on Amazon and bringing them over to your Shopify site or WooCommerce, or, you know, they want to keep them on Amazon. Um, so then you also shouldn't include links to opt out of messaging. Amazon already does this. It's really confusing if you do it too, and it doesn't really do much if you do it. So, you know, let Amazon take care of that. They're already prepared for that. Sensitive content. So, you know, anything that gets kind of graphic or gory or has like swear words, things like that. Email addresses or phone numbers, images of the products purchased. This one's a bummer for me. Amazon does include this in the request a review message, which we'll share a little further on. But I do think that it provides a lot of value as a buyer. A lot of times, like I said, I'm buying a lot of pet toys, and it's like, which one was that again? I don't remember. Is that the one that he destroyed in 5 minutes, or is that the one that is his new favorite thing? So I do think that, you know, losing product images is kind of a bummer. And they don't want images that are not related to your brand or company. So, you know, if you have like a funny image that has nothing to do with your brand, this isn't the place. You know, send it to your friends, but not your not your Amazon buyers. And then you cannot include tracking pixels or images. So
So
a
no
lot about
images,
images.
no images in buyer seller messaging at all, or only
Well, you
brand
can
related.
include images that are related to your brand or company, but are not of your product, which to me basically means your logo.
Yeah.
And in some cases, there may be something else, but it seems like, again, they're wanting to create that streamlined experience. I think a better experience for the buyer that is opening the message, maybe, you know, images can kind of slow down load times and things like that. And I'm sure with a company the size of Amazon's, you know, it's a lot keeping track of all those messages in the buyer seller messaging server and all of that.
So you can include your
So
logo. So you can still do the branded experience in buyer seller messaging where it looks like your company letterhead, or it's got like a splashy
right,
HTML, you know, branded image, but you cannot ever put even the URL non-linkable. Like it can't be visible at all, because that's still diverting traffic from Amazon.
right.
Is that right?
So even if it's in your logo, yeah, even if it's part of your company name, you got to change it, unfortunately. Um, Amazon does not want your URL in the logo at all, or, you know, in your message at all. So you can, we've gotten a few questions from sellers that are doing printed product inserts, and they've asked us about how to use the logo. And I think that, it's totally fine to use your logo, but again, just make sure that you're not including that link back to your website, even if it's on paper. I think it's harder for Amazon to review the things that are inside your packaging inserts, but when they do, they're paying attention. So any rule that applies to buyer seller messaging is also going to apply to your product inserts. So don't ask for positives. Don't put, give us a 5-star review and we'll give you a coupon. None of that. I see it a lot and it's not good, guys.
I do too. I have these decals on my walls, and it has a little insert wrapped around, leave us a 4-star review, and here's our website, here's our phone number, here's our email address, WeChat, Snapchat,
Yep.
Facebook, everything. So
every way to contact them.
And in addition to Amazon probably opening packages sometimes, or looking at product inserts, or employing psychics to look inside, or people with x-ray vision, or whatever they're doing, whatever magic they're doing. Also, people can report you if you're not following the rules. So you never know whose hands your product's going to end up in. If it's a competitor, it's in their best interest to report your bad behavior, in terms of Amazon's rules. So it's just not worth it to break the rules. All right, style guidelines. This part is such a bummer.
Yeah, so as Liz mentioned before, no emojis or GIFs. So the bummer, but like I said, I think it kind of goes along with Amazon's branding in total, which is where I think we get into this: no message margins over 20% max width. And, you shouldn't be including fonts in more than 3 sizes, which kind of made me raise my eyebrows. And it's like, who is including more than three font sizes in their message to begin with? Like, your message should be very simple. And I think that sometimes people, they get excited and they kind of overcomplicate these messages. But it seems like staying neutral and concise is in your best interest, even with a branded message. Amazon doesn't want to see spelling errors or grammar mistakes. So, maybe run it through Word before you pop it into your email template.
Isn't that funny that they would state that? That's interesting.
Yeah, you can't override the default text alignment settings. They don't want to see more than 2 line breaks in a row. One thing that is new, I think, in the clarification is that Amazon can edit your subject line at their discretion. So if they don't like what you're saying in your subject line, they can actually change that. So that's important to remember as you're writing your subject line. Definitely. I've seen some that could be maybe seen as manipulative, or like basically begging for a review or a feedback. And I think that that's the kind of thing that Amazon's really looking to combat.
Don't let my children starve. Please leave a review.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then again, we mentioned before the HTTP versus HTTPS. All of your images should also be secure, as well as your links. So anything you're putting in an email needs to be a secure link image.
I was going to say, though, in the absence of having the product image in the email requesting the review, really your best chance is in the subject line, because, when you get the request a review, it always has the same subject line. It's like your Amazon order, or and it's not specific. So the only way to, like, oh, I ordered 7 things this week and this is the thing that I really liked, for that email to stand out, you would need to have a really good subject line. But obviously, hopefully Amazon will clarify when they might change a subject line. Or is that just wishful thinking?
Yeah. It might be wishful thinking, but I think it'd be safe to assume that, if you're doing something that is questionable, and actually, Liz, that brought up a good point. One of the guidelines here is that all messages to buyers should include the order number. So that's just another thing to be aware of.
Does it have to be in the subject line?
Using a third-party tool.
Does it have to be in the subject line, or
I don't think they specified that.
Okay, cool. So you can either put that in the message or you can put it in the subject line. Well, so if you don't want to deal with all the...
But I mean, it makes sense.
Well, it does, because...
sorry, I was just going to say the buyer, because you can go, oh, which order was that? And then you can just paste it into Amazon and find it really quickly.
It would be better if I could just see a picture of the thing I ordered, but you know,
Yeah.
bygones. So if you don't want to deal with all of the rules surrounding buyer seller messaging, there is another option that Amazon introduced about a year ago?
Yep.
And you guys were the first to implement it into your tool, but tell us a little bit about the request to review button and the difference between that and buyer seller messaging.
Sure. Well, one good thing about the request a review button is that your product image does get included in the message. This is a message that is sent by Amazon on your behalf. So you can request these reviews manually in your order details page in Seller Central. You'll see the red box there that says request a review. Obviously, that gets kind of clunky and time consuming if you're doing this for hundreds or thousands of orders. There are very specific rules about when this can be sent. It has to be within 5 to 30 days of order completion or order delivery, sorry. And the messages are automatically translated into the buyer's preferred language, which is super awesome. It makes it really easy for you to connect with buyers all over the world. And especially if you're getting started in a new marketplace, we have translated default templates, but this is just a step beyond that to really communicate with buyers. And if you go to the next slide, we get a preview of what it looks like. Yeah, so this is a message that Amazon has optimized. They've tested it. It's working really well, actually. It requests both a product review and a seller feedback. That was something that we kind of questioned at first because we've always guided people to only have one call to action. But it does seem to be, getting results for sellers. So you get your seller name. It says that, you've requested to have the buyer share their experience with the recent order. And then it makes it really easy for them to leave a star rating. And then when they leave a star rating, they can go to Amazon and leave more of a review. Star ratings are helpful, but not as helpful as comments. Obviously, you as a seller definitely want to see what people think about your product.
And that's a relatively,
and as a shopper, I think.
Yeah, but that's a relatively new thing too. And I don't know that a lot of buyers are, because you and I both shop the same way. We've talked about this. We search by prime and then we search by star rating. Nowadays, somebody might have more ratings than they do reviews. So if you go to the reviews, like it might say they have 15, that product has 1,500 ratings. But then you go to read the reviews and they've only got 800 written reviews because a lot of this particular template, you don't have to write a review. The star rating that you click just gets recorded and then you are allowed to write a review. But it used to be if you write a review, you had to type something in there. You couldn't just leave a star rating. But Amazon wants it easier for people to rate things. And I think it's still up in the air if they're going to have different weights because it's still relatively new. But for people who don't want to type things, it's a great way to get a star rating that still counts as a verified purchase review. So
yeah,
and it works because look at the numbers.
Yeah, so we've seen we did a sample of sellers who activated this feature. It was over 1,200 sellers, and they were seeing a 41% increase in average daily reviews after implementing the feature. I know we have a marknology agency that we work with really closely that works with Amazon sellers and brands, and they found that their brands are seeing an increase in the number of positive reviews and a decrease in the number of negative reviews after implementing this feature. So it's a really great way to request reviews. It's also very, very easy. With Feedback 5, we have a specific template for it, and you can set timing options. You can schedule automation, between that 5 and 30-day window. You can split by ASIN. So if you have a product that is really high touch, like Liz mentioned, maybe, hey, you updated your product instructions, and for this one, you need to send a customized buyer seller message because you need to include that information as an attachment. And maybe for this other one, you'd want to see what the request a review button does. So Feedback 5 offers a lot of that functionality to make it really easy to do whatever you need to do to operate within Amazon's guidelines.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, Becky, because there might be certain items that you absolutely feel like you need to send through buyer seller messaging a review request because you've got something else that you need to do with it. But this is a nice, like, kind of set it and forget it.
Yeah.
That,
Which I never say with buyer seller messaging. If you're sending customized buyer seller messages that are seller branded, you need to be on top of those. These kind of changes happen frequently. You can follow our blog. We're always talking about it when it happens. But, as a seller, it's really your responsibility. And Amazon says this in the guidelines, it's your responsibility as a seller, even if you're using a third-party tool, even if you're using their API, it's up to you to make sure that you're still adhering to all their communication guidelines. So we do our best to make our templates really easy to use and to make it easy for you to stay compliant. And we do our best to educate you. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to make sure that you're not manipulating or bending the rules.
which is why a
So
lot of people have just switched to request a review, because the benefits, as highlighted on the screen right now, it's easy and it's TOS compliant, like you said. It's got the
yeah.
automatic translation into the buyer's chosen language, which I think is tremendous. Um, so it is something to consider. I know that there's
And
some,
Amazon's never going to, you're not going to get restricted or suspended for using their own message.
right, because they made it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, we're running up on time, and I do want to get to some questions, but and obviously everybody's going to get this recording, but product reviews are important to anybody who's selling on Amazon, like, full stop. You can be any type of seller, and product reviews are important. We might have
Yes.
to edit that part. Um,
So yeah, over 90% of shoppers are reading online ratings before they make a purchase. I know Liz and I have both mentioned, we're actually filtering by the number or the star rating before we even look at products. I don't want to see a 1-star product. If a lot of other buyers have already given it a really bad review, I mean, you've got to get your reviews up and make some product improvements, because it's up to you to make sure that your product is providing the experience that you're marketing in your listing. And like I said, we could get into a whole other conversation about listings, which I will not, because as Liz said, we're running out of time. Reviews help you convert more clicks to orders. They increase your organic search rankings, which is super important, especially to support your advertising strategy. Our friends here at Teikametrics can help you with that for sure. You don't want to be advertising, a product, like I said, with 1-star rating, and, you're putting all this money into driving traffic to your page only to get buyers to go away. And so it's not good. I think reviews also provide a lot of insight that sometimes gets overlooked. You have a unique opportunity as an Amazon seller. This marketplace really encourages reviews. Not every marketplace does. It's also really easy to just go and look at what customers are saying. Do they feel like your product is meeting their expectations? Do they see ways to improve? Can you look at your competitors and see if people are making suggestions in their reviews? There's a lot that you can do to build your brand with reviews. You can also kind of plan the inventory. Is your product trending upward and you need to order a lot more inventory, or is it kind of fizzling out and maybe it's time to start thinking about phasing it out or making a change? So you can track and monitor your reviews with a tool like Feedback 5. You can also do it manually. I recommend paying attention to your reviews no matter how you're doing it. It is easier to automate for a lot of sellers, especially if they have a lot of ASINs. And I know we promised to talk a little bit about how to get reviews. So we did mention the request a review button and buyer seller messaging. There are some other ways. Amazon has an early reviewer program, which has been really good for a lot of sellers that are in the launch phase. You can only use that pretty early on. I think you have to have under 5 reviews. I need to look at my blog post on it. But there are some limitations around that. However, it's only like $60 to enroll. So it's kind of
per ASIN.
why not try it?
$60 per ASIN.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do think that it's important to ask. And now we know that you can ask. It's totally on the
yeah.
up and up. So you guys are offering buyer seller messaging optimization. And I recommend anybody who's sending review requests through buyer seller messaging absolutely go through an optimization session. Make sure you're compliant, make sure that there's nothing that's going to get flagged by Amazon's machine learning or the people who are manually, and there are people who are manually reviewing your review requests. So
Yeah.
it's important to get an expert to help you. And if they're going to help you for free, you might as well do it.
Yeah, and we're here. You know, you can contact our customer success team is awesome. They are happy to help. We're happy to help with your product review strategy or optimizing your buyer seller messaging, which is what we're offering in this webinar. But you know, you can contact us anytime. You don't have to be a Feedback 5 customer. We're here. Our main mission is to make sure that Amazon sellers are educated and empowered to make smart decisions for their businesses, and we're here to help. So you know, never hesitate to reach out. We're not going to get super salesy with you, and you know, don't worry about getting too many emails or anything like that. So
That's awesome. So while I was thinking about brands and how brands rely on product reviews in order to really understand their competition as well. And I always encourage people to look at competing product reviews too, and to have a really good understanding of the competitor space. And so we built something really, really cool that you can use for free that helps you benchmark your brand against competitors. And you can search by organic or paid presence on top terms. And it's called the Brand Performance Matrix. It's for free in
awesome.
the learn section of the Teikametrics website, and we'll put a link to that in the email where we send the recording. But I encourage you to play around with it because it's super cool and it helps you understand who your biggest competitors are in your space. So that will help you with your overall business strategy. So I'm going to stop sharing and let's address just a couple of questions. And Becky has graciously volunteered to take the rest of the questions and address those in an update to the blog post that we're going to be sharing with you guys, but she's not going to do it right away, but just keep an eye back on that and visit that. One question that has come up several times, Becky, is that there's been some confusion about in buyer seller messaging as you're emailing the people who have ordered your products, are you allowed to say, please contact me if you have any questions? I know that was sort of, it was questionable because it could appear like diverting someone from leaving a negative review. So do you have any insight into that?
So Amazon does say non-permitted message types, emails that offer your assistance if buyers have any issues, which I think gets into what you're saying about potentially getting into that diversion. However, I think it's really important to be able to provide service. I know my little brother will call me and say, how do I get a hold of this seller? What do I do to find their contact information? So I think, you know, a lot of buyers actually really appreciate getting a message from you, and you can say something really neutral, very, very neutral, like, please reply to this message if you have any questions. But don't in any way imply that their questions are tied to the review. That's where you get into a sticky subject area.
Yeah, definitely. So some people have actually been restricted from proactive buyer seller messaging. So that was a thing that it was, I think at first it was like 7 days and then it was 10 days and then it became 30 days. What is the state of that? Like, I know that there were some permanent bans going on. What's the climate surrounding those suspensions or restrictions?
It seems like it's gotten better. I think that these clarifications are a big step forward. When we've had sellers, you know, there have been times, sometimes we say, oh yeah, you have 5 immediate and obvious things that you're doing that we can help you fix. And, you know, this is definitely why Amazon flagged your account. Unfortunately, Amazon doesn't give you a lot of context. When you do receive a restriction, it just says like a messaging restriction and the message is kind of vague. They don't call out, hey, you had this line that we didn't like.
Right. It's a list of, you may have done one of the following
Right.
17,000 things that we're not going to tell you which one, but you may have done one of them.
Yeah.
So therefore, shame on you.
Yeah. It does seem like, from my perspective, at least, the restrictions are slowing down. It seems like Amazon's focusing more on making these updates to make sure that they're as clear as possible with buyers from the beginning, which I think is a really important step. And then when sellers have had issues, and if they've gotten restricted more than once, or, had a lot of questions about their account that, they got restricted and then they weren't sure, I just always recommend checking out that request a review button and seeing how that works for you. And like I said, you could test it with one ASIN and just get an idea of, are buyers responding to it or not?
Right. And we did have a question about where the request review button is, and it's on the order detail page. You have to go into each order though to click it. And with Feedback 5, you can just automate it. So you don't have to go into each order and click the button. They interact with that.
And that is through Amazon's API. Yeah. So that, we didn't just go in and do some kind of hack job. We worked with them to create a way to automate that is approved through the API.
This is a great question too, because someone said, when I click request a review, they get a window that pops up that says, Amazon already sends this. Do you want to send it again? That's like the $1 million question, right? Amazon has said in the past that they send a review request for every order. I know for a fact that that's not true, because I do enough ordering from Amazon and I don't get an Amazon powered review request every time.
Right. Same.
So it's fine to go ahead and request the review through the request review functionality, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, because they say that they're going to send it, but they didn't necessarily. So,
well, if Amazon says that they had already requested a review, I wouldn't.
Well, but the language is Amazon already sends this, so it pops up every time somebody clicks request a review. They get the same, window dialogue that says Amazon already sends this. Are you sure you want to send it? Yeah, you do. You do want to send it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a couple more. We did have somebody who said that the majority of negative reviews they get are from first-time buyers. And is there a way to just target repeat buyers through buyer-seller messaging? Do you guys have that functionality?
Not specifically through buyer-seller messaging, like within your Seller Central account. It's actually hard to tell who your repeat buyers are. It would require a lot of manual work that you probably don't want to do. But in Feedback 5, we do have settings to allow you, you can you can send a message that is exclusively for repeat buyers. So you could say something a little different in that message, like, hey, we're so glad that you have enjoyed our product, or something like that. Again, make sure that you're being very neutral with any review request language.
Absolutely.
And then you can also exclude orders. If you have something that shipped late, I know with COVID, things sometimes are taking a lot longer than we would like. And UPS and USPS and FedEx, they're all going to be busier in the months to come. And, if for some reason you think it's not a good idea to send a review request to that person, you can exclude that order, which is really helpful.
That's great. Well, we are at time. Thanks everybody for spending this part of your Tuesday with us. We will be addressing questions. You can always contact Becky and the team at Ecom Engine. They know everything there is to know about product reviews. You can contact me if you've got questions about your advertising strategy, and we will be addressing the questions that we didn't get to in some form or another. So stay tuned for that. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.